Hi ladies, and welcome to our craft on workshop today. For those of you who have never done a workshop with me before, I just wanted to tell you we've already cut all the zip strips off of our other papers. I left one intact so that you can see. All of Close to My Heart paper has a decorative border. On the flip side, it has the name of the suite that you're using. It has down here, it has all of the coordinating colors that you use in this pack, and then it has, of course, the logo. So our zip strips are 1/2 inch wide, so we just cut all of the paper down to 12 inches to cut all of your zip strips off. Don't throw these zip strips away. We will need them for later to decorate with. In this particular pack, the cut apart sheet is the yellow gingham. And I'm going to go on and just let you pencil in. If you have a pencil, you can write down which ones you need to cut. Do you have something to write with, Shirley?
No, my pencil stopped.
Okay, so I'll get her a pen. So just do a tiny little dot so that you'll know which ones to fussy cut later. Okay, so you are going to need to cut out this top flower in the top left-hand corner. That little flower. You're going to need the large daisy right beside the flower. You are going to need the light bulb with the dream in the middle. You're going to need the pink button on the far right hand side. You're going to need the raspberry 4x3 card that has the journaling spot in the middle. You're going to need the Eat, Sleep, Craft, Repeat, the green one on the far left side. You're going to need a 2.5, so out of this 12x12, the pink with the stitched hearts, the zip strip right down the middle, right underneath of your dream. Yep, you'll need that, but you only need 2.5 inches of it. So you can cut the whole thing, but then you're going to cut 2.5 inches off the end. You are going to need, right underneath of the Eat, Sleep, Craft, Repeat, you're going to need the Love You. And you're going to need the Think Happy over here. And then in the bottom right corner, you're going to need the black This Happened. Okay, so that's what you're going to have to fussy cut out of this paper. You will be cutting some circles with the Big Shot. You'll be doing some other things, so you can try to get, you can get the rest of the cuts out of this paper that you'll need for the rest of the workshop, so you have a second one full intact if you want, but you will be like fussy cutting around to try to figure out where to get that from. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is your bases. Now what I have is I have these paper trays, and I put page 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and I kind of offset them just a little bit. Let me show you what I mean by that. Pages 1 and 2 are black. So when I put them in my paper tray, I put one just a little bit further back than the other. So as I do the cutting directions, I'll say, put this on page 1, you'll put it right on the top. Put it on page 2, you'll tuck it right under. Same thing goes for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Some people like to spread them across the table. Some people use paper trays. It is completely up to you what feels good to you. Okay, so 1 and 2 are black. 3 and 4 are the black floral piece, and the back side is black and white polka dots. In this kit, you have 4 of these pieces because I had to add some extra in. So the one with the polka dots is the one that you're using for pages 3 and 4. And you are using it with the flower side up. 5 and 6 are white daisy. So that's your plain white. It's 5 and 6. And then 7 and 8 is your other floral piece, but this one is the ones with the stripes. So you'll be doing this one with the stripes up. All right, and I did not cut my zip strips off of these two, so let me do that real quick. All right, we still good in the camera. I'm still learning this video thing, so be patient with me. And those last two, again, are blue and white stripe up. All right, so now for your zip strips, we're going to get the zip strips all put where they belong. Your first, we have 4 of these. You'll only need 2. These with the black and white with the leaves. One goes on page 1, one goes on page 2. The pink with the geometric, the raspberry with the geometric squares. Is here. There it is. They go on pages 3 and 4. 1 on 3, 1 on 4. Your black gingham. 1 is on 5 and 1 is on 6. All right, you've got 2 that are, what do you call this? A twirly bird thing. What are those things called? Like a windmill, and they are 1 on 7 and 1 on 8. And then you've also got this one with buttons, a little button one, and that is also 1 on 7 and 1 on 8. Now we are going to use one of these blue ones with the blue chevron, but these are going to be cut. Your first cut on this is at 5 inches. And the 5-inch piece goes on page 1. And then the second half gets cut to 6.5. So 6.5, and the 6.5-inch piece goes on page 2. And these other zip strips are for your scrap pile. You can make beautiful cards with them later. We kind of joke around and say they're a layout in waiting. All right, so the first thing that we're going to be cutting is the raspberry with the little plus signs on it. Kind of looks like 2 Band-Aids crisscrossed. And the back side is the green with the light blue words. And we're cutting in this direction so that we're cutting underneath of the words, not through the words. So we're cutting underneath of the words. Yep, perfect. All right, and your first cut, actually your first 2 cuts are at 4 inches. So 4 inches, 4 by 12, 2 times. So 4, and then push it through and cut it 4 again. Now if you notice, I don't always do this, but I try to keep my blade at the top and always pull down. The reason for that is sometimes when you push up, if you're not holding the paper, it'll sometimes scoot the paper. So that gives you a better straight cut if you start at the top and pull down, because the paper is lodged against this little lip here. Okay, so these go pink side up on pages 5 and 6. If you're not doing a girl layout, you can always switch it over and do the green side up. It is never, ever, ever going to hurt my feelings if you change what I have done to suit your pictures. I just want you to put pictures on your page and keep on scrapping. Okay, so your next cut, so back to your 12-inch piece. Your next cut is at 1.5 inches. One and a half. Now turn your 1.5-inch piece short in the trimmer and cut it at 7. The 7-inch side is green up and it goes on page 2, and the little piece is a scrap. All right, so your large piece goes back in the trimmer tall again, and this time cut it at 1 inch. Now here's another key. When I'm doing 1 inch or shorter, I will do it on this side of the trimmer just because I have more base to keep my paper straight.
So 1.
So 1 inch.
Okay.
We're using the 1 inch piece. The other side, put that aside. The 1 inch piece, turn it short and cut it at 7. The little piece is a scrap. The 1x7 also goes on page 2, green side up. And this last piece, this last 1.5 inch piece that fell off, goes on page 8, pink side up. All right, so we're cutting your other green. And this time we're turning it a quarter to cut it. So this time we're cutting down between the words, not under, down between the words. So turn it a quarter turn, Shirley?
I cut it off.
Oh, okay.
My cut wasn't clear.
You're not using that end if you don't. Okay, so your first cut is at 5.5. So 5.5. Oh, see, I pushed that up that time, and
I did too.
yeah. All right, so now you turn your 5.5 inch piece, but I held on to it pretty good. Turn your 5.5 inch piece short in the trimmer and cut it at 8. Your 5.5 by 8 goes on page 1, and that is green side up. Now, you will need to cut some circles, a 3-inch circle cutter, and that is with the shaker die. For pages 7 and 8, we're using shakers. So you'll need this shaker die that does a 3-inch circle. So we need enough paper out of this one to get 2 of these 3-inch circles out of. So set that off to the side somewhere, there for pages 7 and 8, but set that piece off to the side so that you will know that you're going to be cutting circles out of that at the end of class. All right, and this piece is a scrap. All right, so next we're cutting this blue. One side is like the blue leaves and the other side is the little stripes, stitch stripes. And your first cut, actually both of these you're going to be cutting down. Yes, you're going to be cutting down between the leaves. All right, so your first cut is at 6. And then turn that piece short and cut it at 10 3/4. The little piece that fell off is a scrap. Your large piece goes on page 2, leaf side up. All right, so your large piece goes back in the trimmer tall, and this time cut it at 4 inches. The little piece that fell off is a scrap. And then turn your 4-inch piece short and cut it at 10 3/4 as well. Little piece is a scrap. Large piece goes on page 1 with the leaves up. All right, so now your second piece, and we're cutting it in the same direction. We're cutting down between the leaves. This time we are going to be using the back side as mats though, but we can still cut this side because it's easier to know you're cutting it the right direction when you're going down through the leaves. Your first cut is at 4 1/4. Actually, let's do that twice. 4 1/4 by 12, 2 times. So 4 1/4, set that aside and push on through and cut another 4 1/4.
Okay. This would be 4 1/2.
4, nope,
So this
keep going.
line?
Yep, that line. And then do that one more time. So put
that big
put your
piece.
4 1/4 to the side. Yep. Now this little piece that fell off, put that in your circle making pile because you're going to make a circle out of this later. Now turn your 4 1/4 pieces short, and you're going to cut, the first cut is at 6 1/4. 6 1/4, and then scooch it through and cut it at 4 1/4. All right, the 6 1/4 goes on page 5. The 4 1/4 goes on page 6. All right, your second piece, you're going to cut at 6 1/4. Turn it short in the trimmer and cut it at 6 1/4. And then scooch it on through and cut it at 3 1/4. Both of those little pieces are scraps. Your large piece goes on page 6. And the small piece also go on page 6. So those are your mats. Alrighty, next. La la la. This is like the wow one out of this grouping. So one side is your blue stripes. The other side is your floral. We're going to be using the floral. Well, mostly. We're going to be using some of the stripes too. Your first cut on the floral. All right, we're going to do this to conserve paper. So I'm doing this a little bit different from the directions. So if you're following directions, stop right now and do this so that we're conserving some paper. You are going to cut, your first cut is at 9 inches.
It doesn't matter.
Nope, doesn't matter. So 9 inches. So take your 3-inch piece that fell off and put it on page 8, floral side up. Now that 9 inches, turn it short in the trimmer. And I'm going to give you all the cuts and then tell you where to put them all. Your first cut is at 5. Scooch it through and cut it at 3. And then scooch it through and cut it at 3 again. The little piece that falls off is a scrap, but that is a really pretty piece that could be used for card making. All right, your 5-inch piece goes on page 2, and that goes with the blue side up. The blue stripes is up. And then the 2 floral pieces go on page, oh, I'm sorry, no, that does not go on floral side up. Oh, yes, it does. It's striped side up. It's striped side up. All of these are striped side up. So now these go on page 3 and 4. The 2 3-inches go on pages 3 and 4. All right, so your second one, that's the floral. I just like looking at the floral better. All right, you're going to cut 2 by 12 2 times. So 2 by 12 once, and 2 by 12 again. And these go floral side up on pages 5 and 6. All right, so floral back in the trimmer tall. This time cut it at 1 1/2. This large piece is a scrap. That's going to do lots of things. If you make more layouts out of this paper, or whatever you make out of the rest, won't you post it in Scrappy Ladies That Play at Scrap U so I can see your creations? Okay, so turn your 1.5 inch piece short and cut it at 5 inches 2 times. So 5, scooch it down and cut another 5. The little pieces of scrap, and these 2 pieces go on page 1 and 2. I'm sorry, they both go on page 1. I don't know what I'm saying. Yep, they both go on page 1. All right, we didn't use as much floral as I thought of that. Okay, so next we are going to cut the yellow gingham. And you know what? If you haven't cut this, you probably can't. Except for that circle that you can get out of the scrap, we're only going to need 2 inches. So what I ask you to do is look at this and kind of decide, what do I like and what do I not like? If you want to keep these, cut your 2 inches off of this side. You like this, cut your 2 inches off of this side. I'm cutting this for Bev, and I don't know what she's going to want, so I'm going to take my best guess.
Well, can I use this one, or are you going to use it somewhere else?
Well, you can, but you've got to cut all your stuff out first. So all the little things are all in different places. So if you want to wait till the end and we'll go over these cutting directions again, then you can get that out of there, because it's only, well, I can tell you in YouTube land too. It's 2 inches. It's one piece that's 1 inch. Well, I'm sorry, 2 pieces. They're both 1 inch by 9. And they go on pages 3 and 4. You can absolutely get this out of the leftovers after you have cut all of these out. So if you want to do that, that's great. So, and then you'll need a spot for that 3-inch circle. Okay, so remember that, jot that down somewhere so you'll remember, and then you can cut it after you're done cutting all your little doodads out, or you can pause me, cut your doodads out, and come back. And 2 strips that are 1 by 9, 1 on page 3, 1 on page 4, and then put a little chunk over on your spot that you're doing your 3-inch circles out of. Okay, so then we'll set those to the side. All right, so next, get out your pink cardstock. This is Pixie cardstock, and you will be using the pink, Shirley.
I will.
You said you were good to use pink on?
This one.
Yeah, what about the first one?
No.
Okay. So the last cuts you won't do, but the first 4 cuts you do, and then after that you don't. Okay, so your first cut with the Pixie, and I typically use the dark side, but on this particular one I'm using the light side. And your first cut is at 4.5. Your 4.5 by 12 goes on page 5. And now, keeping your paper in the trimmer tall, cut it at 3. Your 3 by 12 goes on page 6. And now you're going to need 2 little wee 1/4 inch pieces. Now this is where I say, particularly, I like to work it off of this side because I can see better and I have more of a lip. So here's my that first little line is a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch, teeny tiny little sliver. And you need 2 of those. All right, and they go on pages 3 and 4. Okay, so now Shirley, don't do the rest of these cuts. This is for everybody else that does have girls. Your next cut is at 3.5.
Do I use the blue?
Yes. So 3.5. That little piece is a scrap. Now turn that 3.5 short in the trimmer and cut it at 1 3/4 2 times. So 1 3/4, scooch it through, cut it at 1 3/4 again. Those 2 pieces go on page 1. You are going to emboss those with the floral embossing folder. I shall show you. This is the Close to My Heart floral embossing folder. Can I get it out of here?
Did you say page 1?
1 and 2. I don't know if you can see that well, but it's got those pretty flowers. Can you see that? What I love about our embossing folders is, see that little place down the middle that you can put your paper through. That way, if you're trying to emboss all 12 inches, you emboss, do your thing, run it through your Big Shot, and then you can push that right through to that next spot and then keep embossing so you can get a whole page done. All right, so that we're going to do those with the floral embossing folder. But to continue, all right, so your piece back in the trimmer short again, and now you're going to cut at 1 1/2 2 times. 1 1/2 and 1 1/2, and those will both go on page 2. Here. All right, that's it with that pink.
Page
2. And now you are going to use your Bluebird cardstock. This beautiful Bluebird. We are using the dark side. Your first cut, just to conserve a little bit of paper, is going to be at 9 inches. Now turn your 9-inch piece short and cut it at 6 inches. All right, those go on pages 3 and 4. All right, so your piece that fell off the bottom, put it short in the trimmer and cut it at 4. This piece is a scrap. Your 4x3 goes on page 8. All right, White Daisy cardstock. Your first 2 cuts are 4 1/4 by 12. So 4 1/4 by 12 2 times. And they go on pages 3 and 4. Three and 4. All right, so what you have left, put it back in the trimmer tall and cut it at 3 1/4. 3 1/4. That little strip is a scrap, or we like to joke around about it being a journaling spot. Actually, we usually joke around about the little teeny tiny pieces being journaling spot because some of our ladies just don't like to journal. But that's so important to tell your story. Okay, so now turn your paper, your 3 1/4, turn it short in the trimmer and cut it at 4 1/4. Scooch it through and cut it at 4 1/4 again. Both of those go on page 1. And now keep pushing your paper through and cut it at 1 1/2. 1 1/2. And then take your 1 1/2 inch piece, turn it short and cut it at 3. There's your journaling spot. That's how Marlo likes it. Okay, so your 1 1/2 by 3 goes on page 4. And those 2 little pieces are scraps. Your second piece of White Daisy. Now this is all for mats. So if you're not a fan of doing mats, then you can just fast forward this part until we're over. This is all for mats. So your first 2 cuts are at 4 1/4. 4 1/4 by 12 2 times. And then your third cut is going to be 3 1/4. So 4 1/4, 4 1/4, 3 1/4. We're here. You like my directions? Okay, so turn your 4 1/4 short, cut it at 6 1/4.
The big one?
Yep, you've got 2 big ones. We're going to cut these both exactly the same.
Okay.
So if you're a fan of stacking 2 together, you can do that. But we're going to turn it short, cut it at 6 1/4, and then push it on through and cut it at 4 1/4. And then the little piece that falls off is a scrap. We're going to do that again with the second 4 1/4 piece. Six
3
1/4.
and 3 and
Wait. With 4
6
1/4. 6 1/4 and 4 1/4. That way you can get a 4x6 and a 4x4. All right, so one of your big ones goes on page 2. One of the 4x6s goes on page 2. One goes on page 4. And then your 4x4s, one goes on 3 and one goes on 4. All right, so now to your 3 1/4 piece. We're going to turn it short and cut it at 4 1/4 twice. And those go on pages 2 and 3. And then that piece is a scrap. All right. So next is your craft paper. One side is all the little crafty icons, and the second piece is love. Now we're going to be cutting the love. I like the love, so I wanted to keep that. So I want you to cut on the opposite side of love. Keep that out and cut on the opposite side. So your first cut on this one is at 7 inches, but you're leaving the love out of it, because you're going to be making a circle,
Up and
one of those
down.
3-inch circles out of it. Yes.
How many again?
Just, 7 inches. All right, and we're going to actually be using the, well, you can flip it over and use whichever side you like, but I'm using the icon side. And that goes on page 6.
The big one?
Uh-huh. The small one we're going to put to the side, and we are going to cut the love out of that with the circle. So put that in your circle pile. All right, and the second piece, I used this for the whole thing. So it doesn't, so it's not directional on this side. I don't care which direction you cut it. We are going to be using them all going up and down on this layout. So I did my second one again the same way to leave this out, just because I thought if I had a scrap I would like it to be that little love piece. All right, so your second cut is at 5 1/2. Your 5 1/2 by 12 goes on page 5. And then scoot it on in and cut it at 1 1/2. And your 1 1/2 by 12 goes on page 8. And you've got this nice scrap with the little love, or you've got some of this more amazing paper. All right, so next is our, let's do our raspberry. So we've got some raspberry. You're only going to do one cut out of that, and that's at 4 1/2. We're doing a double mat out of this, so at 4 1/2. And then turn that short and cut it at 6 1/2. since I can't see the 6.5 on mine, I'm going to cut it at 5.5. That way I know 6.5 is what fell off. So the little piece is a scrap. The large piece goes on page 7. All right. And then the last thing that we are cutting is your second piece of pixie. You will cut your blue. You'll cut your blue. All right, so the first thing that we're cutting is 6 1/4. Wait. No, do 4 1/4. Cut it at 4 1/4. 4 1/4. Turn that 4 1/4 short and cut it at 6 1/4. And then push it on through and cut it at 3 1/4. Your 6 1/4 goes on page 7. Your 3 1/4 goes on page 8. All right, so with your remaining paper, put it back in the trimmer and cut it at 4 1/4 again. The piece that fell off is a scrap. Turn your 4 1/4 short and cut it at 3 1/4 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. All right, so all of those go on page 8. And we are done cutting.
So we don't use this one.
No. All right, so if you'll hold on one quick second, I'm going to give you a quick little tutorial on how to make your shakers. Big shot. So our shaker thin cut, shaker window and confetti, comes with a 3-inch circle that you cut out for your bases. All of our thin cuts come on this great magnetic sheet. It's nice and strong. They don't fall off. So when you put them, I store mine in my Everyday Life, the 6x8 albums, and the Everyday Life page protectors, they fit perfectly in there. For these 6x6 square ones, I saw a little note, which I'm going to have to do on that, is to use our mini stapler and put staples in it so that fits better. So all of the little circles you're going to cut are out of this 3 inches, but this particular die set also comes with this stitched border. So this you cut to put on top of it to decorate it. And then these two little guys right here, these make confetti. So in this particular pack, it came with colorful sequins, but if you don't have sequins and you're making cards, you can make paper confetti right here with this. So you've got hearts and stars. All right, so here is what we are going to do. Now on this one, we did 2 squares, two circles. We did one with the love, and then I did one with the other color. That's the other thing I love about Close to My Heart dies, is they're a little bit thicker than some of our competitors, and I'm not talking about I'm talking about, like, I went crazy buying some off of Joom and Wish and those kind of places, and they're just not great. They don't cut thicker cardstock. Sometimes they don't cut, they're just not great. But what I love about these is they can cut through almost 4 pieces of paper. I don't like doing 4 pieces, but I can. But 2 is super easy. So I fold my paper in half. I put my die down, make the sandwich, and go back and forth. So the kind of rule of thumb is for every sheet of paper you have, you want to go through one more time. So if I had 3, I'd go through a 3rd time. And for me, 4th for good luck. Bring it back to me. So go through twice. Let's cut 2 of my circles out. All right. Oh, I've got to get some more paper for y'all that aren't here. Where did I put it all? So the blue and yellow. Let me get that real quick. put it all in a safe place. You know how that goes once it's in a safe place. Okay, we need 2 yellows and 2 blues. All right, so once again, I'm going to fold this, put my die on, all right, here's my yellows and blues. Now this kit, if you got the Better kit, it also came with the shaker window foam and acetate. So here is how you're going to do it. These little guys, it comes with a clear acetate piece. This does have a film on it, so I just like to just barely kind of almost act like you're tearing the edge, but you can't tear it because it's acetate. And then get my fingernail under there to lift up that clear piece. And because we're putting the white stitching, I'll have to show you that too. Because you're putting that on top of it, you won't see that little dent. So we're going to put that right there. The stickers, this is the sticky piece, the part that lifts it up. It's got an outer ring and it's got all these little squares inside. The squares inside, you don't even need for this at all. You just throw that in a bucket and now you have extra pop dots. So you're going to very carefully pull that whole sticky piece off. Not the top, just the sticky part of it. Leave the top intact. You want one of those to do? So we can make them together? All right. I used the lighter side on this one. Now you're going to very carefully put that down right on the outside of it. Some pretty sequins. Gonna add a little sequins. You don't want to add too much because if you put too much then it's not going to want to move. Everything I had sitting out for the, oh, there it is. All right, so I'll show you the white while we're here. Okay, so I've got my sequins in. I've got the top. I'm going to use our anti-static pouch on both sides so that the sequins don't jump up and down and get all excited to see you and get stuck in your sticky. All right, so I want to very carefully take that top off without disrupting everything. All right, after I've got the anti-static on it, then I can put that on. Make sure it adheres. Now you've got your shaker. And the last thing that we want to do is make this stitched thing. Now I usually do send the stitches in one at a time just because I like to make sure I see my stitching really well. It will still give you the stitching. I just like to, it's a mental thing maybe. All right, so stitching in. All right, so we have a little pokey tool that goes right in here. And of course I put everything back away after class last night. Good morning, Gay.
Good morning. You have a new door?
Yes, I do, for 4th of
Thanks.
July, thanks to Kathy.
Yes,
All right.
It's cute. I like that.
Ladies, hang on one second. I've got to go get 2 more little things. I'm just not prepared this morning.
Well, I'm playing getaway right now.
Well, we are on record, so if it's not something you want the public to hear.
Well, I'll just tell you, we've had a skunk event at our house.
Oh, no.
So, a skunk.
Okay, I'm back. So, pokey tool. That's the other thing our dies have, these little holes in the top, so you just poke. You can just poke your little guy right out of there. Okay? So now we're going to use our liquid glass, and this is one of the beautiful things that just came out that I absolutely love. Do you need to use that for the
I can't get the
edge?
thing off.
So we have this little guy. It has even more of a precision point, and then the top has this little metal piece that goes down in there. If you're over 40 like me, you might need some glasses to see to put it in there, but that way it keeps it from getting clogged. All right, so now I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glass. And I'm sorry, I stand right up and get right beside the camera, so I hope I'm not blasting you out. So dab my glue on. Come on.
I can't get it.
All right, so after you've dabbed your glue on, then just carefully put that over top. You gotta let that dry, and you have those beautiful little shakers. All right, so I'm going to try to very carefully take this off of the holder. So I can go show you the pages that we've done. You see that floral embossing fold that we did? That little guy is mine, so that doesn't count. That's 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and then these were my creation, 7 and 8, where we do the shakers. See, we did them grid style. And if you're taking this class, just email me or text me or smoke signal me so I can send you actual still photos of all of these pages so that you can recreate them yourself. All right, can't turn the camera. I'm just going to turn it myself and say bye. Have a great day. Happy scrapping.